previous video, we learned how to install Sass, but now the real fun begins because we're going to learn how we can use Sass to clean up CSS. So here we have a pretty basic web page called Catching the Wave, which is kind of just a surfing site or a surfing blog. And this was a website that was created back in the HTML and CSS chapters as kind of a final project for CSS. So it includes lots of different CSS properties and CSS selectors. Now, switching over to the code, we have some markup, but we don't really need to concern ourselves with that. What we are concerned with is the CSS, because what we're going to do is we're going to transition this whole site from normal CSS into Sass, and this site makes a very good test case just because there are so many different CSS selectors that are used. Now, this process can be automated, but I want to show you how to do this manually because in the process of porting the CSS over into Sass, you'll learn a lot about Sass syntax and how it relates to CSS. If we do everything correctly, the site should look visually the same as all the same style rules will be applied. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create a new Sass file here. And I'm just going to call it style.sass and create it. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste all of our CSS here over into this Sass file and save it. So let's go ahead and get started. Now first, we need to make our comment up at the top here into a proper Sass comment. Comments in Sass are started with a slash and then a star, just like normal CSS, and then you can put anything you want on that same line. So let's go ahead and fix this comment and then I'll talk about it just a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this trailing slash here and tab this in just a little bit, just like that. Now this is a multi-line comment. If you want to create a multi-line comment like we have here, you need to indent each line that comes after the first one. Comments don't end with a closing star and slash either. You should just leave that off. Now next, because we're using the more concise, indented syntax, we need to remove all of these curly braces and semicolons. Let's go ahead and remove the curly braces and semicolons in this first page styles section here. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove all these here. And I think there's just a few more down here. And I'll just adjust the spacing just a little bit there. There we go. And believe it or not, that's it for this first section. This is now valid Sass. So when you're at the most basic level like this, Sass is basically just like writing CSS without the curly braces and semicolons. So let's go ahead and move on to something a bit more complex so that you can start to see how Sass can save you a lot of time. So we'll go ahead and move on to this next section here. And I'm just going to go ahead and tab in this comment. Go ahead and make it a Sass style comment. There we go. And now let's try an example of a concept called nesting. Nesting allows you to put CSS selectors underneath other selectors so that the parent selection gets inherited. That probably sounds complex, so let's just go ahead and try an example so you can see what I mean. So first, we need to again remove all of these semicolons and curly braces. There we go. And let's go ahead and nest this li inside of this nav here. So I'm just going to go ahead and indent that just like that. So up here you can see that we've selected the nav element by ID. Below that we have some properties and they're all indented by one tab. That means that these properties will go underneath this particular selector. Now further down we have another selector, which is this li here, and this is indented just as far as the properties above it. But we've removed the nav ID selector that was before it. That's because this li is nested inside of this nav selector, So it's the same thing as selecting the nav and then selecting all of the child list items. And finally, underneath the LI selector, we have its properties indented just one more tab inward. So there's 2 tabs here. We've gotten a good start on our Sass overhaul, but there's still more to do. In the next video, we'll finish things up and compile our Sass back into CSS.